Wicked is a lot of fun. I tend to enjoy movie musicals, and I do think this movie, as overhyped or as popular it is a lot of fun, and definitely one I would rewatch. I've already seen this movie twice. Having said that, it is kind of like this year's Barbie or Joker. That's Joker 2019. It's going to get a lot of awards push. And I don't really think a movie like this should win Best Picture. I just want to get that out of the way. I see the argument for it. It's very popular. It's a movie everyone likes, should be nominated. But you have films like Dune 2 and Anora, which just clearly deserve it more. One's a massive blockbuster that's almost perfect, and one's a great independent film. I think Wicked is just more plain and simple than both, but still for what it is, it should be recognized. It is a massive tentpole, a piece of pop culture entertainment that should be celebrated for being exactly that. This is a fun time at the movies. It's better than Moana 2, if you saw my review for that. It's unabashedly entertaining, it's full of life, it's funny, sweet, despite having not as many Technicolor elements that were in Wizard of Oz, it does have really great design and colors. And I'm 50-50 on that because I do really like those classic colors, that Technicolor bright hues of red, green, blue, and ruby that pop on screen. Those colors really do pop in old movies. But I do agree, Wicked's kind of muted color palette works at achieving the sense of drama you want in a film like this. It's a 160-minute epic building up to a part 2. This is part 1 of a part 2 movie. And for building up to a great climax, it does a great job. The pacing here is very good. This is one of those movies that is simply fun. You have to have lots of fun moments. The songs are well paced. It's exciting. There's a variety of different musical numbers. And I've really never even seen Wicked, which is kind of insane as I live in New York. It's been around for over 20 years. The only song I really knew was For Good because we had to sing that for elementary school choir a while ago. But seeing this, I now really like all the big hits like Defying Gravity, What Is This Feeling, Dancing Through Life, Popular, The Wizard and I. Movie musicals are very hard to pull off. There are terrific ones like La La Land, which really worked because it's all original music and it looked really great. And then you have something like Mean Girls or Dear Evan Hansen, the movies, which just don't translate to the big screen as well because it's so small in comparison with other musicals. It's hard to depict some movies on a big screen. Like those movies were both set in high schools, and as a result, the music numbers didn't feel so great. If you have Moana 2, it's just a broken movie, probably even worse than Wish, which is hard to believe, where everything that worked in the first one is just awkward here. It's supposed to be a musical, but it feels so forced and out of focus with the rest of the story, but never mind that. Wicked works terrifically as a musical because it's fun to look at, it's well paced, the songs go really well with the story, and the way it's shot, even when there's split screen or people sing, talking, it all works because it's so committed to being this musical. Moana 2 has trouble committing. I mean, even in that movie a couple times, they say, not another song, like they're ambivalent or can tell it doesn't really fit. They're not committed. But in Wicked, everyone is committed 100%, and for that reason, this movie works as a musical. Going back to Barbie last year, this works just as a form of escapism, and they are both very different and brash. Barbie leans more into story camp, where the camp here is the costumes and designs and look. The story is fairly simple and a retread of a lot of allegories about finding scapegoats and figureheads with no real power, as well as found friendships. And Barbie also had ideas about body positivity and women kind of navigating a male-dominated worldview, but they're both different levels of fun stories. I think Wicked is more epic, as it should be. It's a huge musical with giant set pieces. It's based on one of the most famous movies of all time in The Wizard of Oz, and it should rightfully be as huge and grand scale as a movie like this could be. The visuals are great. It does rely on a lot of green screen, but I'll let that slide here, because a lot of the other stuff in this film is really good. It's not just like Marvel or fucking Red 1, where you're watching actors who aren't even doing that great, reciting a couple of cheesy lines against a blue screen. No, here you have really great actors singing really well in front of really cool sets, which are enhanced by green screen. There's so much work being put on screen by the art directors, the costume designers, the composers, the actors, the set designers, the director, and all the other artists. It's just very noticeable. Whereas if you watch a movie kind of recently, like a Marvel Studios film, it doesn't come across that way. I mean, I don't expect Captain America Brave New World will be very good. In fact, it looks pretty bad. But even if you see Deadpool and Wolverine, the new Marvel film, you can tell lots of effort was put in for that final bus scene, but so much of it relies on CG and effects. I'm not trying to turn this into a Deadpool and Wolverine review. My review for that is already up, and many people know what I think of it. It's like a funnier, edgier No Way Home, It's an okay slow story, but it does have lots of moments, good moments. At least in Wicked, a lot of the plot here is not spent explaining shit. That happens in Moana 2, and it's so fucking boring. The best thing here is the movie is really fast paced. You go from song to plot development that keeps the movie flowing. And each song is really fun too. The casting is also really good. I really like all the characters. They all bring this unique likability to their roles. I guess my issues with this film lie in that it's a one-parter, and as a result, it has part one syndrome, where a lot of the story stuff goes unresolved. And this is all stuff people told me I was being too nitpicky with, but I'll talk about it. Issue 1, I wanted to see why animals were being blamed. Like, the genocide allegory takes up a relatively large role of the subplots, yet it's not really stated why the Wizard of Oz wants to blame them, or what he wants to blame them for. Perhaps it isn't the point yet, and more of that will come up in part 2. Maybe it's just about how one person's trying to find a scapegoat, but I really needed this to feel more believable. And that brings me to issue 2, which is the Wizard's actual presence in this film is pretty muted. I did like the ending. I love Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard. It's perfect casting. But it seems that whatever they are trying to say gets kind of lost, especially in the same way, and please forgive me for making this comparison, as Red 1, where I just want to see everything at the end, and all the filler stuff from before is less interesting. Now, I really did mean that was kind of like an overreaction. I like a lot of the scenes at Shiz University, which is pretty much the whole movie. It has a very Harry Potter-esque atmosphere to it. But the ending, which is really built up to, just feels like there should be more. And it's kind of like, you know, you see Elphaba is merely just an instrument for the wizard. He isn't this incredible prophet or genius. He's just some guy. But it's all the foreshadowing that doesn't do much. Like, we never get to see any of the beliefs that people have in the wizard. If we were told he can create miracles or produce wonders, or we even got evidence that maybe the movie would hit harder. Like, the whole thing in Wizard of Oz is these 4 people travel because they want to meet him. They believe and they know he can do great things. The lion wants to not be scared. The Tin Man wants a heart. The Scarecrow wants a brain. Dorothy wants to go home. And they all know the wizard can help them with this. And when you find out he can't do any of this, it hits harder. You kind of think at the beginning of this movie, Elphaba wants to change her skin from green to another shade because she's uncomfortable being born with green skin, but they don't really do much with that plot and how it relates to the wizard himself. It just kind of only comes up at the end when it's important, but it isn't built up to gradually. And also, all this stuff is just kind of thrown in when they get to Oz. It's rushed. The third act is all exposition and explanation. I guess I can give the movie some excuse because it's probably part of the play, where there's a play within the play where they explain what the Grimoire is. It's this magical book the wizard found, and he can use it to conjure spells and create magic, but he can't really read it. He needs someone who can. And just the fact that all this is crammed in at the very end, at least for me, it just took away from the impact. Like, at the end, they have Elphaba read this and she can do it, and it's just like they just introduced it, though. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is, you know, she's the one. If they had introduced it maybe at the very beginning, it would feel that way. It was kind of weird to me how they wait till the very end to introduce this huge plot MacGuffin. Like, this thing is such a huge influence on the plot, yet it only comes up at the end. And it's all a little distracting because it's being sung to us by Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth, the original Broadway stars, who are in this in cameo roles, and I was more focused on that than what they were telling me about the Grimoire. Like, I'm all focused on, oh, Indina and Kristen Chenoweth are in this, and then it's like, oh yeah, they're introducing this huge thing that is then only big at the end. This movie is really a lot of fun, and it's a great time, but it is not as epic as it could be, and it does certainly get close to it, and we're gonna have to wait till part 2 to see if it gets paid off. But really, right now, I thought this movie was a lot of fun. It has its flaws, and it's a fun, entertaining movie. I just don't think it's one of the best movie musicals I've ever seen, and I do wish it kind of had this more epic sense of grandeur, or it built up to that thing with the Grimoire, or even with the wizard. Even if they just had more like exposition at the beginning, and didn't have all that stuff at the end, it would be better. I just wish they kind of built up the wizard a bit more. They built up the issue with animals in Oz. I feel like all of that could just make this film stand out on its own and not be like, oh, it's a part 1, we're going to find out in part 2. Just those things were my issues with the movie and the plot, but everything else I really did like. It was a lot of fun. I had a great time watching this. I just didn't think this was like the definitive movie musical. So that's what I think of it. Let me know what you guys think. Really a great time at the movies. Everyone was so fun. I would 100% see it again, which is a sign to how well paced it is. But yeah, I didn't think it was amazing, and the plot just needed to be a little more, just have a little more to build up the wizard and the whole thing with the animals. So let me know what you guys think, and thanks so much for watching.